Should be loading up shortly, so we'll get quote. Oh, there we go. Technology is working with us for now. So yeah, like I said, thank you guys for joining us. The U.S. men's national team beat Jamaica 4-1 in an international friendly today. 2 goals in the second half from Sebastian Lejet, 1 from Brendan Aronson, and of course the screamer in the first half just before halftime from Serginho Dest. What a goal, Ryan. What a goal that was.
Yeah, I mean, as good as a goal that was, I don't think we were playing as well in that half. It was kind of like a lifeline for Serginho Dest to give us that. And really, second half, we just started taking control. I don't think there was, apart from the one goal, there was nothing but a sniff in from Jamaica. But yeah, I think that goal from Serginho Dest really went a long way in getting us moving some more, especially coming right before the half. So beautiful stuff. I mean, he's just in the form of his life right now. Coming off of a bad spell, he's right back up where we expect him to be.
Yeah, we'll talk about the first half a little bit in this because we had a lot of issues with that first half or the halftime show. Wi-Fi wasn't actually at all on our side. So let's start with Serginho and Christian on the same side. That was absolutely filthy. Christian didn't have his final touch. You could tell he's a little bit rusty. He hasn't been playing a ton for Chelsea right now, but he was constantly dangerous. And there were a few times we clipped in a couple of really dangerous crosses for Josh Sargent that he probably should have done better at. And then there was a couple where he had a little shot in form and a sharp Christian Pulisic puts that away 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and that's going to be a deadly duo come the future, man. Like, I mean, I don't know how long we'll see that last, but a good talking point is something that Twelman mentioned as well is the rise of Anthony Robinson can throw a screw into that side's development because it makes you question, if Robinson is better on the left, do we move Dest onto the right? And, obviously Dest and Pulisic are a great combination, but would Dest be more beneficial in his main position, playing on the right-hand side, maybe linking up with Gio Reyna? So it's going to be interesting to see as Robinson, as Cannon both develop what the best fullback pairing is going to be, because that ultimately will decide which flank might be more devastating.
In a press conference this week, Serginho Dest said he was equally okay with playing on either side, and he likes playing on both. He says he's a different player when he plays on the left as opposed to the right. I personally think he's better on the right. It seems like most of the broadcasters and stuff, Taylor Twelman mentioned it, that he thinks he's also better on the right. So I think Anthony Robinson has the ability to seal down that left back spot, and I think he can. When Anthony came onto the field, I thought he was really good, played in a couple really nice crosses that I think should have done better with. Josh Sargent, the one comes to mind where the header just glanced right over his head, didn't really get it on frame. I thought he should have done a lot better at that. And I think that just allows for the entire team to be better. While Serginho was by far, I don't know about by far, but he was probably the best player on the pitch tonight, in my opinion. I think that he still has more to give when he's on the right side because of that crossing ability.
Yeah, and when we talk about who our number 9 is going to be, that's going to be something that we definitely need to improve on, and something that, obviously you see Cannon, you see Robinson trying their best to whip into the crosses, but, Gio Reyna and Pulisic as well, along with Dest. But crosses are going to be important depending on who we play as our number 9, especially if it's Josh Sargent, especially if it's Sebastian Soto. Depending on our play style, that's going to be a huge factor to take into consideration as to who our fullback pairing is going to be.
Yeah, and continuing that fullback thing, the Jamaica goal should not have happened. It was a counterattack off of a attacking set piece, and the defense did a really good job to get back, but the problem was Reggie Cannon did not close down Andre Gray, and it was allowed him to play a ball in behind. I don't think Acosta did himself a ton of glory in following the run of Jamal Lowe, who scored for Jamaica. Nothing Zach Steffen could do on that goal. Beautiful chip finish. But the thing is, I think Anthony Robinson is a better player at this stage than Reggie Cannon. I think he's better defensively, and I think he is growing in the attacking side of his game.
Yeah, and that's always been the argument, because obviously Robinson has the better defensive awareness and positioning and all that. But if Robinson is able to up his offensive game, which I think is where Cannon is superior right now, then it kind of pushes Cannon out of the equation. But I think that's what's so great about having them both, is that they could push each other to elevate each aspect of their game. Obviously, Cannon can improve defensively, Robinson offensively, and having them kind of opposites can elevate them both. So it's just going to be a good to see, a good battle to improve both of them as players. So
yeah, and a guy that we haven't even talked about is Brian Reynolds. He just made the move over from FC Dallas to AS Roma, just made his debut for Roma. So that's another hat or another name you got to throw into the hat for that fullback conversation. DeAndre Yedlin's starting to get back in form now that he's moved over to Galatasaray in Turkey. So it's a good thing to have all these options. We've been talking a lot about having options at the striker position in the forward attacking areas. Now we're getting that in the fullback positions, and those have been an area of the field that we haven't had in the last qualifying cycle. Our biggest hole was left back. Now we have a bunch of different options we can go with. There's one guy that we know has to be a part of this team in those positions, and that's Serginho Dest. But the other position is up for grabs, and there are a lot of other options. We didn't even mention Sam Vines, who's actually played really well over the Olympic qualifying tournament for the under-23s. He made his debut in the domestic camp a couple months ago. So it's a positive thing to have all this, options for Gregg Berhalter to do, because at the end of the day, if you have different options, you have different play styles, and the different play styles can help you beat different teams. Because in CONCACAF, you have the likes of Mexico, Costa Rica, and Jamaica, who are now becoming a force, and Canada, who are also on the rise. And then you have the likes of Guatemala, El Salvador, where they're just going to completely low block you, and you need to have a full possession.
Yeah, and also, when we talk about options, another case that I want to talk about, another one of the best players on the pitch tonight is Brenden Aaronson, and he's another one of the options that is going to probably push Gregg Berhalter to make some decisions in the future. Obviously, I didn't have him in my preferred starting 11 tonight because I don't think, the balance with Gio Reyna, with Pulisic, I don't think that works. So that's why I initially put Sebastian Lejet onto the field in my 11. Obviously, that's what Greg went with as well. But Brenden Aaronson took control of that second half when he went on, and that we cannot deny. So this is, it has you beg the question: does Brenden Aaronson have a place on the field with Gio Reyna and Pulisic on at the same time? Will that work, or do you have to sacrifice one of the two in order to give Brenden Aaronson the freedom and the ability to obviously spur on 3 more goals for the team? So that is also a big question as to, who's more important, who can benefit the game more. We just got options all over the field now.
Yeah, I think the substitution from Christian over to Aaronson was more of a fitness thing as opposed to anything. Chelsea and Salzburg probably had a lot to do with that. Hopefully in the next game, we do get to see them start from the beginning. That's what I had in my preferred 11. I wanted to see Aaronson dropping deeper in that central midfield role with Christian out on the wing. Maybe in the future we see a bit of a formation change at some point. Maybe if with Aaronson out wide, Christian playing through the middle, Gio on the right. There are a lot of different options that we can have because of the young crop of players that we have going up. I mean, this camp doesn't even have our 2 most nailed-on starters in the midfield, and Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie. Not to mention we have Eunice Musa, who is, I think, fantastic today in his first game after committing 100% to the U.S. It's extremely exciting. This Northern Ireland game, yes, it's going to be another game. I don't think it's going to be as a competitive game as this Jamaica game was, especially from a intensity standpoint, being that it's a CONCACAF opponent. But Northern Ireland, when you see them in the Euros, they're trying to find their best 11 for that, and they're a low block side. They're going to try and play a lot of that defensive style that we've seen a lot from some of the lower level of CONCACAF. So I think it'll be a good test, and I just hope we can see Aaronson and Pulisic playing on the same side together. Maybe with an Anthony Robinson, that might help balance it out if you move Serginho back over to the right so it's not 100% attacking down one side, because we even just saw it in the one goal. When we're attacking, especially when you're so attacking heavily down one flank, it leaves the opposition with the opportunity to hit you on the counterattack.
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering, if it's possible to play Pulisic, Gio, and Aronson together with a number 9 as well. I mean, like you mentioned, that may result in Pulisic down the middle. I'm curious to see what kind of strategy we could take on if we want all of these young creative players on the field, because a lot of the times this may mean that they're competing for the same place, getting in each other's way, even if Brendan Aronson is going to have to drop deeper and whatnot. But I'm intrigued to see where he can fit in with those other two guys on the field if we do choose to play a number 9 as well. But speaking of number 9s, what are your thoughts on Josh Sargent today?
I thought Josh Sargent was good. I think he should be disappointed not to score. The one ball from Joaquin right across that 6-yard box of Jamaica, I thought Josh Sargent could have, if he made the run a little bit earlier and he could have gone onto it and had an easy tap in. He didn't. He was fantastic. That assist that he had was really good. Great turn, slotted it right across the 6-yard box for Brendan Aronson. Easy tap in finish. He made a couple really good and nice runs, I thought. But at the end of the day, he's going to be judged on whether or not he can put the ball in the back of the net consistently, because there are a lot of young strikers that we have coming through. Daryl Dike didn't even play today. Jordan Sibichu made his debut coming off the bench. We didn't see a ton of him, only got about 5 minutes, didn't touch the ball really. So we didn't get a good look at him. Joaquin came on. He played it on the right wing spot. He had an assist, but in the previous camp, we saw Joaquin play striker and score 2 goals in his debut, not to mention Jesus Ferreira and Sebastian Soto, who are with the Olympic squad right now. And then, of course, the ever-present Josie Altidore, who hopefully will be able to get back, and hopefully we'll get him fit and firing soon.
Yeah, I thought Josh Sargent, he looked good today. Obviously, he could have done better at times when it comes to finishing. But I think he really kind of assets the play of Gio Reyna and Christian Pulisic as they kind of do a lot of the works on the side. Josh Sargent, as we know, he can create something, small in the box when the ball is brought in from the wings. If there's a scramble or if there's, a nice quick pass played inside, that's where Josh Sargent kind of thrives, making something, in the, crowded box area. So I think he did that a lot. There was a few good times, just quick passing over plays in the box, and his assist as well was really, really good. I think just seeing him back with this team is really positive. I think he can have a big say going forward, because this was a good game from him, but all that's lacking is, getting the ball in the back of the net. And that's something we know he can do. He's in good form right now, and we'll see if he can bag it on Sunday.
Quick discussion about Sebastian Lejet before we get into the player ratings. I mean, Greg just loves him. It's a big joke between us because they're like, I was like, I don't really want to see him in the team. I want to see some other players that are maybe a little bit more exciting. And you put him in your preferred 11 being like, it's Sebastian Lejet. Greg's going to pick him. He did. And then he gave him the full 90 minutes in the last few minutes of the game, almost in garbage time, if you will, gets himself 2 goals.
Yeah. Look, it's almost funny because time and time again, we talk about him on our show. Being the one guy on the LA Galaxy, the struggling LA Galaxy, seems like almost the outlier in this team when it comes to, all these up and coming young European guys. But man, he will not lie down, this guy. Being one of the few MLS players in the squad, he holds his own. And as much as like we want to talk about him being that only MLS player, he doesn't look like that at all when it comes to the United States men's national team. He is always sharp. I mean, even if he's not sharp, he still manages to find a couple goals, and that's something you can't ignore. So constantly proving us wrong, Sebastian Lejet. I love the guy, of course, but it's almost comical how good he plays with the national team.
Yeah, and you mentioned that his play elevates with the national team. He had that long-term injury, so he hasn't really been a part of the previous setup, even though he is 27, 28 years old, coming on that now. And I think it's a testament to his work ethic. And most importantly, I think he's nailed down a spot. I don't think in our squad. I don't think part of our best 11, he's in the team. We've seen him even when we think that we have what our best pride midfield right now of Adams, Musa, and McKennie. as that midfield three. We saw him play up top, but that was also in a team that didn't have Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, Josie Altidore, and all those guys. I think he's a great squad player now. He is such a versatile player. He can play in multitude of positions. He can play a multitude of systems, and he'll be able to do it at a good level. Do I think he's the type of player that you can have starting in your team or as an important player, a key player in your team, if you want to win a World Cup? No, I don't think his game is at that level. With that being said, I think he's a great squad player because of his versatility. He's almost becoming the James Milner of this team, if that makes sense. Different style of player, however, the same type of – he's always around, just sticks around. Like, he's not the most pleasing player to look on the eye, but he always seems to get it done in the end and can do whatever the coach needs him to do.
Yeah, not to mention when you reference James Milner, the leadership and, the seniority and character that he brings to the squad as well is definitely beneficial. Regardless of what club he plays at or not, he holds himself high in character, and players seem to respect him, and it does seem like he belongs with this squad, like you said. So as much as we love to poke fun at him, he in my opinion as well has definitely solidified his spot as a part of this team, at least as a squad player.
All right, let's get into the player ratings. As always, we'll start with the goalkeeper, Zach Steffen. Didn't get the clean sheet, but I don't really think that was at fault to him. Had a couple nice saves, especially right there at the end after the one set piece where no one attacked it and made a good back post save. I'm giving Steffen a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Steffen a 6.5 out of 10. I didn't think that this was his best game. He didn't look as as confident at times as always. Obviously, with the he had a little mistake touch in the beginning and then conceded the goal, which nothing he can do. But just not his most dominating performance from between the sticks. Not as as influential as you would normally expect. A big voice in the team like him to be. So I give him a 6.5, but obviously nothing hard done by him. The goal was obviously not his fault, but I still think he is our best option. So 6.5 for me.
Moving on to the defense, Reggie Cannon. I didn't think it was a great game from Reggie. Didn't offer too much going forward. Was probably at mistake for the goal in terms of him not closing down Andre Gray. I'm giving him a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I also gave him a 6 out of 10 for the same reasons. I put him in my lineup to begin with. That's who I would have preferred to see play. I do love his ability to get high up the field, but I don't think we saw enough of that today. And then also, defensively, wasn't as sharp as he should be as well. So I gave him a 6 too.
The two center backs, I'm giving John Brooks a 7.5 and Aaron Long a 7. I think Brooks was probably the better of the two. Aaron Long only played about a half. Chris Richards came on for him at halftime. I thought both of them were fine. They didn't have too much to do. Didn't really do anything wrong. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna go not to dwell on these two very long because there's like you mentioned, not too much to talk about. But I gave Long a 6 and then Brooks a 7.
All right, moving on to left back. My man of the match, Serginho Dest. I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. Scored an absolute screamer of the goal. Constantly dangerous with Christian Pulisic and Brendan Aronson down that left flank, which is probably not even his best position. We can see Andrew Hoybe in the chat right now. He's a big Serginho Dest fan. We're both big Serginho Dest fans here at Stars and Strikes. 10 out of 10 from the Barca man.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not be a Serginho Dest fan, man? It's crazy.
He's so good. And it's the flair is there. He's such an exciting player to watch.
Yeah, like how I would never expect a player like this to be playing week in, week out for the United States men's national team. It's crazy to see, someone pulling off these little juggles and tricks mid-game because and not only that, he looks comfortable doing it. He looks like that's just him as a player, and we know that that's just him as a player. I gave him a 9 out of 10 just because I do think he was one of the best on the field. I'm pretty strict with my 10 out of 10s. So not trying to ding him at all. I think he was phenomenal today. I just love seeing how comfortable, yet so influential and tricky at the same time. It's just so cool to see time and time again. I'm still not over it.
Yeah, you know what? I gave him a 10 out of 10. I'm the emotional one on this podcast. I like to get the boys excited. I'm excited. Dude, he is just so good. I mean, I don't know if you listened to the pregame press conference yesterday from Dest, and he said he's the type of player that loves the flair. He likes to be an attacking player. Where he's going to need to improve and where he sees himself and how he has improved at Barcelona is defensively. When he was on the pitch, they didn't score a goal, was not at fault for the one Jamaica goal. Excuse me. I thought he was absolutely great today. Let's move on to the midfield. Kellen Acosta, I gave a 7 out of 10. I thought for the most part he was really good in breaking down the Jamaican counterattacks. The one goal that they did score, I didn't think he followed the run of Jamal Lowe, who ended up scoring the goal as well as he should have. However, I thought he was pretty good in terms of distribution as well, so I'm giving him a 7.
Yeah, I gave him a 7.5 actually. I think he actually, he looked obviously not the best he could be, but I think just taking up this position in this team, it looks like he could do it. I mean, take up that Michael Bradley position, that Tyler Adams spot. As I mean, obviously not in the starting
as the deputy.
As the deputy, he could definitely do it. I think he looked good, a positive enforcer, good distribution as you mentioned, and kind of just tenacious in on people. I liked it, and I know that he can improve on it. So it's good to see. 7.5 out of 10.
Real quick question: do you prefer Kellen Acosta or Jackson Ewell playing in that holding midfield role?
Oh man, you think that's supposed to be a hard one? I think I'm going with Kellen Acosta, no doubt. Jackson Ewell can play that position, sure. But I think he just has way more growing to do than Acosta does. Obviously, like we mentioned, Acosta does have to grow into that position, but Jackson Ewell just has way more to build up on as well. So,
yeah, a bigger question will be Kellen Acosta or Michael Bradley. But that's a discussion for when we actually get into the competitive games, because games like this don't serve those guys too great.
Yeah, and we haven't seen Michael Bradley for a while, so it'd be good to see if he could come back and nail down his spot again.
Moving on to the other midfielders, Eunice Musa, I gave him an 8 out of 10. Once again, very impressed with Eunice. I thought his ability on the ball has been fantastic. I think he dominated physically out there in the midfield. Some of the ones that were running down balls that were, maybe a deflection here and there. Second ball, he was fantastic. And I think the place that I wrote it down where I think he's improved the most is playing faster and getting rid of the ball quicker. I think he's thinking a lot faster, and a lot of that just comes down to the fact that he's playing week in and week out in one of the best leagues in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was great to see him today because he's one of our newer guys. He's only been around for a camp and a half now. But it looks like he fits in playing with even new guys now in this midfield. It looks like he fits in. He is a player that is very beneficial to the play style that we're trying to work around, and he fits in perfectly to that. I think he's going to have be a real influential player in that midfield in the future. Today I gave him an 8 out of 10. But for a player like him, when you have that creativity around you, it's not always going to be Musa that's the star of the show, but today I really think that he did his job well as kind of the supporting actor, you could say, and it was great to see.
Moving on, Sebastian Lejet, Gregg's favorite player. I'm giving him an 8.5 out of 10. I think he's probably less involved earlier in the game in terms of the buildup and stuff compared to Eunice Musa. But at the end of the day, he did get 2 goals near the end of the match. So I think you got to give him a little bit of the slight edge over Eunice.
Yep, and I honestly had his score way lower until the goals started.
Yeah, he probably would have gotten a 6 from me. I'm giving him a 6.
Yeah. No, without saying it, he had a 6 from me as well. But yeah, brought him back up to an 8.5 just because he continues to prove us wrong, man. 2 goals, you can't turn your head to that. So. Even regardless of how he played the rest of the match, he put his stamp on the game at the end. So,
all right, moving on to the front three. Gio Reyna. I didn't think this was the best game from Gio. There were a couple of nice moments, I think. He got himself into a few really good positions. The finishing touch just wasn't there. He's a guy that's kind of hitting a little bit of a block right now for Borussia Dortmund. Not in the best form, but we have to remember he still is only 18 years old. He just turned 18 in November. There's still a lot of room for him to grow, and there's still a ton of time for him to develop. And the goals are going to come. They're going to come back. So I'm giving him a 6.5 out of 10. Not his best game, but there were still moments of you could tell where you could see the talent coming through, especially with his passing and his ability to lay off the balls.
Yeah, it's every time I almost need a reminder when talking about the young players in this team when they do have an off game. So thank you for reminding me that Gio is only 18. Because the other day in our show when we made score predictions, 6-1, 5-0.
It was 4-1. That's not a bad.
Yeah,
that's pretty close.
We were close, but it definitely could have been 6-1. It could have been 5-0. I think partially to blame with Gio Reyna. I think he had the opportunities to get the ball in the back of the net quite a few times tonight. Maybe 2 or 3 big opportunities, and he just was not clinical enough to make it happen. And I think that's something that he's working on. Obviously, in a little bit of a rough patch with Dortmund, he's working on that. But like you said, he's 18, so not to be too harsh on the guy. I gave him a 7 out of 10. Not the best game. Could have bagged a couple, got an assist or 2, but he's growing. So no harm, no foul.
Moving on to the left wing, Christian Pulisic played only a half. I thought it was a very dangerous half from Christian, giving him a 7 out of 10. He was constantly causing issues, as it seems like he always does for that right back. I thought his relationship with Serginho Dest was really good. Something that would go unnoticed was his overlapping run or with Dest where he cut to the outside, and that actually allowed the hesitation from the Jamaican defense, allowed Serge to cut in and get a shot off, which we all know was a stunning goal. So I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. It wasn't his best game. You could tell he's not 100% sharp because there were a few moments where fully fit and firing Christian Pulisic sticks it in the back of the net or in the top corner. And like you said, this game's 6-1.
Yeah. I gave him actually a 7.5 out of 10. Just because I think, did you give him a 7.5 as well?
I gave him a 7.
Okay. But yeah, I just because I gave Gio a 7, I think Pulisic definitely did better. I don't think Pulisic has had as many clear-cut chances as Gio did, but he was definitely dangerous on that left-hand side and creating stuff for his own. A fully fit Pulisic, like you mentioned, tears up that side even more. So
yeah, and there were a couple nice combinations between the two of them. Those are the two guys playing together that we really wanted to see on the pitch together. There were a couple nice combinations. There was one where quick little 1-2, Christian beats a defender and then slides a ball in behind for Josh Sargent. The ball didn't quite reach Sargent and the run not on the same page, but still stuff like that. You can see the foundations of what we can build upon.
And what too I like to see from Pulisic is that he still has that confidence to take players on and be selfish at times and bring the ball on his own into the box, take on players. Of course, the end product wasn't there. There was a couple of opportunities when he had some fantastic dribbles and then got a shot away, deflected obviously, but just love to see that confidence from him, knowing that he is kind of in a rough patch with Chelsea. It's still there. That drive and determination to find the back of the net is still there.
All right, moving on to the striker, Josh Sargent. I gave him a 7.5 out of 10. Got an assist, like we mentioned earlier. Fantastic turn, and then laid it on a platter for Brendan Aronson to score his goal. However, I thought there were a few opportunities where he didn't make the right run, and maybe he could have. And then the finishing touch for Sargent just wasn't quite there today. Like I said, though, earlier, I think he was pretty good off the ball, creating runs in space for other players. So I'm giving him a 7.5 out of 10.
Yep, I also gave him a 7.5 out of 10. Great minds think alike, as usual. But for basically the same reasons, I think Josh Sargent was really positive tonight and kind of coming back into the team and showing Gregg Berhalter what he can do as far as link-up play, hold-up play goes, finding little pockets in the box, creating space for others. All that sort of stuff we saw tonight, but just missing that finishing touch as far as, goals. Did get the assist, so can't thank him on that, but we'd love to see a goal from him. 7 out of 5 from a decently influential player in the front three, but he still can elevate it.
Moving on to the substitute bench, Brendan Aronson came on for Christian Pulisic at halftime, made an instant impact, had a fantastic counterattack where he played a ball in behind for Gio. The finish wasn't there from him. However, still a fantastic chance nonetheless. A few minutes later, got the goal. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. He didn't quite keep that same dangerous what's the word for it? I can't think of the word for it right now. I don't know why it's on the tip of my tongue. Didn't quite have that same dangerous impact throughout the half. However, I still think, like you said, you can't complain with a guy that comes on, scores a goal. That's why you bring a guy on off the bench, and he did his job. I hope to see him make the start against Northern Ireland, hopefully alongside Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna also playing. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, see, I loved this performance from Aronson. I gave him a 9 out of 10. I'd even go as far to say that you can debate that he could be our man of the match just because he came on, he got a goal right away, and he was also involved in the other 2 goals. He assisted to Lejet in the 90th minute, and then even the I think the 83rd minute when Lejet got his first goal. His movement was that made space for Lejet to open up to. So, the fact that Aronson came on at half and influenced the game so well, without that influence, we could have tied this game 1-1. But he comes on, he takes up that position as an attacking playmaker with Pulisic going off, and he plays a role in all 3 goals. So props to him. Maybe it wasn't the, constantly influential performance that, Dest had when he was on, but he did get the numbers in, which ultimately made this scoreline look pretty good. So I love that performance from Aronson, a 9 out of 10 for me.
Moving on to Chris Richards, came on for Aaron Long at halftime. Didn't have too much to do. I thought he was fine. A couple good passes, a couple clearances he had to make. 7 out of 10 from Richards.
Yeah, and just a lot of the subs were, did a lot of good in the second half. There wasn't too much to mention. Richards was one of those guys just because when he came on, that was kind of when we were kicking into high gear and just totally took it to Jamaica. There was times when the defense wouldn't see the ball other than distributing it right back into the other half. So Richards was part of that, just spell of domination where there wasn't much called upon him. I gave him a 6.5. But it's just good to see him get some minutes, Good outing for him.
Moving on to Nicholas Joaquin, came on for Gio Reyna. 7 out of 10. He had a chance where he skied. That was a little bit disappointing to see, but he did get an assist, so I'm giving him a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, same reason. Didn't get too involved apart from the assist, and obviously could have had another assist to Josh Sargent. But we know Joaquin as like a clinical finisher type player as well. So would have loved to see him get him more involved inside the box. He did come on, played the wing, but that one shot he had that he skied, that was kind of ugly too. But not a bad outing, obviously influential from the right side of the field. So I gave him a 7 out of 10 as well.
Yeah, playing out of position, still an influential game. Got his name on the score sheet with an assist. Moving on to Anthony Robinson. I gave him a 7 out of 10. I thought he was constantly dangerous down that left flank. Didn't put a foot wrong defensively. Put in a couple really nice crosses, namely for Nicholas Joaquin, who we just mentioned, the one where he skied. I hope to see him actually get the start against Northern Ireland as well.
Yeah, and I think he will get the start against Northern Ireland, hopefully, in my opinion as well, because he looked sharp. Definitely, I think he looked better than Cannon in the cameo that he had today. I gave him a 7 out of 10 as well, and I'm having fun watching this little debate between both of them go down because they both have their games and then they both sometimes have their off games. So, let's see what happens against Northern Ireland.
Moving on, Luca De La Torre. I thought he was pretty lively. Got himself an assist as well to Sebastian Lejet. 7 out of 10. Yeah, didn't have a ton of game time, but when he was on the pitch, he made stuff happen.
Yeah, I gave him a 6.5 out of 10. Basically, same reasons as usual. Good to see him, but hopefully we'll see him more.
Yep, and then finally, Jordan Sibachu didn't do too much. I give him a 6 out of 10, but hopefully get to see more of him. This was his debut since committing to the national team. So, yeah.
Yeah, with Jordan Sibachu, it makes me wonder, we saw a lot of Josh Sargent this game. So what do you think is going to happen against Northern Ireland? Do you think we'll see Sibachu, Joaquin? Who do you think we'll see start?
I think we'll see Josh Sargent from the start again. That or I'll see Daryl DK. Daryl DK didn't feature in this game. He's been on a big time run of form. I know he was the guy you wanted to see start this game. So I hope to see Daryl DK actually get the nod in that game.
Yeah, I thought they did mention something about DK having a slight knock or something. Wasn't quite sure if I got that, so don't quote me. But I would also like to see some more of Jordan Sibachu because he just had a quiet little cameo tonight. But he's in hot form as well. So whether he comes off the bench for a bit longer against Northern Ireland, be great to see. Tonight, I just gave him a 6 out of 10. Pretty lackluster just because of, game was winding down when he came on. Couldn't do much else than what he did. But this camp, we definitely deserve to see more of him. So hopefully Gregg takes that opportunity on Sunday.
Couple final thoughts on this game before we go to a quick discussion on the Mexico under-23 game against in the Olympic qualifiers against the U23s. I thought it was good to have finally a more of a competitive game. The last few games we've seen against the likes of El Salvador and Trinidad and Tobago, they didn't have the same quality. Even when we had strictly the domestic team, the opposition wasn't up to match. This was a pretty good Jamaica team. They didn't have Leon Bailey, Andre Blake, and some of their other big guns. However, we got to see Andre Gray and a couple other guys who were making their Jamaican debuts because they're recruiting a lot of English players. Jamaica is going to be a trouble for all these different CONCACAF teams in qualifying because they got a lot of guys coming in and committing to their national team, namely Michael Antonio from West Ham has been rumored to go to them. So I think this is a good buildup. I think the real test prior to the competitive games is going to be that Switzerland game because Switzerland is going to be preparing for the European Championships. That's their final tune-up game. So we're going to get their best 11. And I'm guessing we're probably going to show them our best 11 because the Nations League and qualifying starts and Gold Cup is right after that.
And what I like to see too is that, the United States showed some bit of resilience in this game because Jamaica wasn't as easy to break down as those CONCACAF sides, as we mentioned before, Trinidad. We weren't just running on top of them for the full 90 minutes. We had to kind of work at them for some time. There was times when it was 2-1, and then I had myself thinking like, oh no, is this going to be one of those games? But we were able to, find our footing once again and take the game over. So there definitely was that competitive nature to it, that aspect of what's the word? I guess kind of like hardship or, that we just have to work through that during that 90
You got to
minutes.
grind it out. You got to grind it out.
Yeah, exactly. And there was times when, some things weren't working. And even with the substitutes, we were able to take hold of the game once again. So it wasn't, I think we learned, we came out of those past games with the first team saying like, oh, we learned nothing. We learned nothing because, it was a dominant game. We just ran over them. But today, I think we definitely did learn a few things. We definitely saw the team had to grind a little bit to get what was, in the end, a pretty hard-fought victory.
Yeah, and then the U.S. under-23s not so lucky with the victory, falling to Mexico 1-0 last night. I think that was just a disappointing result because it didn't match the performance. The under-23s probably deserved a draw. It was just one crucial mistake from Sebastian Soto in a area where he should not be, trying to drop super deep, pretty much into that number 6 role, playing a careless pass that allowed Antuña, formerly of the LA Galaxy, to score for Mexico.
Yeah, and I won't talk too much on it just because I couldn't catch the game in full. I only watched some bits and pieces, but I did see a lot of creative opportunities from both ends, which was just a testament to, I think, that these teams are both kind of neck and neck when it comes to the quality that both sides have. I'd even say that the United States did deserve a draw, like you mentioned, just because I think we are at that level as well. And some quick little error like that did prove to be detrimental, but not to say that we aren't at that level, and moving upwards even.
And something to mention about the Mexico is they're seeing a lot of pressure from their fans, especially in that Olympic qualifying tournament, to beat us in that game, because the U.S., we didn't even have our big guns in there. Think about the guys that are actually at this senior camp that played in today's game: Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent, Eunice Musa, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, who aren't in the camp, but they are all still under the age limit for that Olympic qualifying tournament. You see all these guys popping up for the U.S. in terms of they're breaking through at a European club. You don't see that right now for Mexico. And they're our biggest rivals. And, you know, they're feeling the pressure from the Mexican supporters. We all know how passionate they are and how strict and how critical they are of El Tri. And, we lost, and yet we kind of still have that big jab is like, yeah, we lost, but you kind of got a little lucky because of a little mistake. And by the way, our best guys weren't even there.
Yeah. So, and like you mentioned, that's, I don't think that they can compare to the development that we have going on with this country's direction that we're going into. You know, it's one thing to lose to Mexico and, you know, a U23 game, but it's another to say that, like, all of our potential prospects and the players that we're looking towards are, you know, off to bigger and better things. This is, you know, this isn't our main priority right now. If it was our main priority, scoreline could be totally different. But we obviously have the depths and the squad now to not only just, you know, not only almost deserve a draw against this stronger Mexico team, but even push players out of that squad and, you know, be off doing other things, obviously, with this camp right now and against Jamaica.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I was responding to a comment in the chat. Mason was asking, how do we see Dest's future going with the U.S.? It's going to be huge. Dest is a phenomenal player. He was the best player on the pitch tonight. He's going to have such a big future and such a big impact for this team going forward, especially this summer going into qualifying. I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see the senior teams between Mexico and the U.S. actually play. But there's something of note that we have to say right before we wrap things up here. Alec, no. To answer your question and to comment, I think Barcelona is a great spot for Serge. It was something we didn't actually think he was ready for, and he proved us wrong. We didn't know if he was ready to be a week in, week out player for the likes of a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich. The two teams he was linked for, went to Barcelona, and he's done fantastically when you look at it in a bubble. But back to USA, Mexico under 23s. Yes, we lost that game. Yes, it's disappointing. But the big game and the most important game is going to be that semifinal on Sunday. That is pretty much win or loss, go to the Olympics.
Yep, and let's, I mean, not to talk too much on it because we have to wait and see. Who is that against so far? Do we know that yet?
No, we'll find out tonight because
that's right.
Canada and Honduras are still neck and neck in terms of that other group.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, either way, I think Canada is another football playing nation that's on the rise as well. So it'll be a huge game regardless of who comes up. Obviously, Canada trying to go on that same path that we are with their young players, and I think it'll be important to take that game by the reins, regardless of who the opponent is, and get that spot. So,
yeah, quick look at the chat just before we wrap things up. March Madness, March Madness has been great so far this March. The upsets are crazy. I got Baylor still alive, so you know I haven't my bracket's not completely busted. You got 3 of the Final 4 left, 6 of the Elite 8, so we're doing pretty good so far. But that's where we are gonna wrap things up here. Thank you guys all for joining. Tons of stuff still to come this weekend. The U.S. senior team plays on Sunday against Northern Ireland. The U.S. under 23 play the semifinal. That's a do or die game to go to the Olympics Sunday night. So a lot of stuff coming for you guys. Make sure to join. Look out. Thank you guys all for joining. Have a great weekend.
See you guys. Have a good one.